Hello, and welcome to another fully live Friday episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today there's no Killian. He's not here. It appears as though he has other engagements that he has to attend. So yeah, it's just gonna be me again, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you see it, I guess. I don't know. Sorry to Killian, because this time it truly is unfortunate. He has something he's got to go do that's not so fun. Last time he was sick, and then before that he was on vacation. So he's been away for a while, but it's okay. I'll hold down the news this week. It's good to see James and everyone else in the chat. So there's a lot of stuff I want to go over this week. One of them is something we touched on a little bit last time, which is just AI generated code. So I have been playing around with some of the microcontrollers I have access to. Of course, the one that I use for education, this open source design here, the Nugget has a microcontroller on the back that I was reading through, and it has capacitive pins. So I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I was able to make something that reacts to capacitance, and when you get closer to it and the electric signals or the currents in your hands get closer to the wire, which is acting as an antenna, kind of go up and down the Roy G. Biv scale. So like when there's not very much capacitance, it would be red or yellow. And then as you go to actually touch it, it would go all the way to violet. So this was something that I wanted to do in CircuitPython, and I was like, I wonder if Bing can handle this. And it turns out it totally can. I was pretty surprised to see that you can actually take a pretty niche and specific language like CircuitPython, tell what pin you're going to be using for the NeoPixel and what pin you're going to be using for the capacitance, and basically get code spit out that actually works for this. So some examples I had here were like automatically logging out, or even making a little keyboard or a mouse out of tinfoil effectively by connecting wires and then just like touching one or the other to navigate around or to click. There's a lot of different ways you could use this for interesting projects and also for person sensing. So you can see that I had a little bit of tinfoil right here. It was pretty cool to be able to plug in a wire, attach it to this tinfoil, and then get a much bigger level of capacitive sensing where it would sense when I sat down and could be used as just a presence sensor to either like maybe log you out when you get up and go away or something like that. So lots of cool and interesting things you can do with just AI nowadays. And the Bing integration into ChatGPT is free. I found it really easy to use for this. So if you've been considering playing around with microcontrollers and you want to try out some of this, I can say that it's working. It only took me a couple iterations to get this to where it was. And really, I just said like, hey, there's this error, or hey, the green light's turning on, but it's not reacting when I touch it. And eventually I was able to work it out. So encourage anybody who hasn't tried out AI code generation. It's really come a long way when it comes to what you can use for microcontrollers, these little, tiny cheap computers that allow you to do something a little bit below the operating system. So not quite like a Linux operating system like a Raspberry Pi, but more something like a Pi Pico, or in this case, an Espressif chip like an ESP32S2. So very cool, very fun. I know a lot of people feel like maybe they can't get into this sort of microcontroller stuff, but maybe if it's this easy to write really simple prototype code, it kind of is possible to like generate good example code for you to learn from and then kind of learn based off of that. So really cool. Yes. So James says a visual theremin. And guess what? My friend Irish, who has been featured in some of our videos before, was just like, yes, make a theremin. So I did. I took a buzzer, a piezo buzzer, and I plugged it in. And I was like, all right, ChatGPT, I want you to make it so that the tone goes up and down as well. So it acts like a theremin. And it's like, okay, buddy, here's the problem. Like these pins don't support analog out. So it's going to sound horrible. And I was like, okay, I guess I could deal with that. And it was correct. It did in fact sound pretty horrible. Like you can't really tell the difference. And the way it has to toggle it on and off to work with a digital pin for an analog device is not super pretty. But I'm confident that I can get this working on some level, maybe by having an actual speaker or by otherwise playing with this. the guy behind the Theranin was a Russian spy. I mean, if that's true, then that's really cool. But I'm not going to spread misinformation on our stream. All right, so let's talk about a little bit about how the recovery in the casinos is going. So we talked about how there were some job postings, how there were some cyber attacks, and there would probably be some job postings for people to do incident response. This is apparently, and this is by Las Vegas locally, so I'm not sure how great of a source that is, a job posting by MGM for $110 an hour for a 1099. That's a contract position, which means no benefits. And you are supposed to be willing to work every day until the new IT environment is fully stood up, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week for as long as it takes. Higher pay for those willing to stick it out until the job is done. A lot of people are shocked by this because like this actually works out to not that much money. It is like a low salary for somebody in this industry already, let alone for something that is in like crisis response mode. So I don't really have any like forward-facing news for how the incident response at MGM is going. All I have is this that's kind of been passed around the InfoSec community and commented on that like this is not enough to like attract talented people. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so next up we're gonna get into this story a little bit later because it's too big to kind of cover in the intro. But there were some OSINT tools shared that I thought were kind of interesting. This was from the SANS OSINT Summit. It's cool to see these just kind of drop, but of course a lot of them are without context. So let's go through them really, really quickly just to see what they are, shall we? So for OSINT investigations, we're trying to find interesting data and like do analytics and use publicly sourced information to find patterns. And often these third-party tools are a good place to start. This one appears to find Twitter bios to connect with anyone, compare Twitter accounts to find overlaps and target new influencers. Okay, so it just seems like a third-party tool where like it looks at Twitter information and then tells you connections. Cool. So we had another one called Social Bearing that it's like trying to load my tweets like still, but it can't. So I'm sure this is an excellent tool. I just don't know how to use it, and I wasn't able to pull any tweets in about myself. I do see that I have some followers, which makes me sad because I don't really use Twitter as much anymore for obvious reasons. All right, so we also have a tool called SMAT. And it is basically a tool for like researchers who are like going after or like looking for hate speech on the internet to like search through all like a bunch of like weird sketchy communities to like track trends that are going through those communities. So if you're somebody that tracks like in when I was working with journalists, we were talking about a bunch of like far right extremist groups there that were like doing fundraising, and they were sharing content throughout their platforms. And one of the ways that they were able to help track them was by looking on these platforms and identifying trends that these groups were using to spread information. So really useful for people that are doing that sort of research. Of course, we have Flight Radar 24. Anytime you want to know what that plane is coming over the horizon, of course, this is great, but also you can track individual airplanes and get all up in their business. Like, what is this guy up to? All right, you're going from Amsterdam to Kyrgyzstan. Okay, all right, I guess that's fine. But you can kind of just like zoom in and figure out like what everybody's up to in a way that I think is really cool. You can learn about the plane, you can learn about the route, you can find out where people are going. You can also track like individual. So, at a minimum, if somebody is coming in that and you know their flight number or whatever, you can find out if they're running late or what the deal is. And you can also track a lot of aircraft. If you want to get into ADSB stuff, then there's some like military aircraft that have their stuff scrubbed off of these publicly available maps, and you'll have to kind of be able to access your own if you want more information. But yeah, you can really get all up in people's business here, and for the most part, it is free to do this. There are certain limitations once you start getting crazy with your monitoring, and then it's worth it to pay. But it is a good service if you're interested in aircraft. This is the Eyes on Russia map. Again, I've not really used this. My eyes are not typically on Russia on a daily basis. but is a tool for people that are doing research into Russia. And then also we have dorksearch.com. What a charming little face for this service. It looks like an angry ghost. The whole thing looks like an angry ghost. Okay, it doesn't like being enlarged. So you can see there's some pre-built dorks. There's a dork builder. That's so cool. I actually love this. So if you're interested in Google dorking or making it easier to get more precise information out of search engines, then this is going to be a really awesome tool. Yeah. Let's see. In title, I don't know, cat fancy. Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to know. Okay, cool. All right. So you can kind of see, you can see a little bit how it works. It's just like constructing, it's constructing dorks and like making them for you. So if you're a beginner researcher or if you're just tired of formatting searches by yourself, this is a good way of kind of putting them all together. So, all right. Let's talk about the news this week. So also, if you have anything you want to talk about, if you have questions that you think of afterwards, I have to, as always, shout out our Discord community. I have been posting updates on there. Hello, live chat. Oh, okay. So I've got like evidence now that the guy who made the Theranin was a Soviet spy. Thank you very much. That was a very short loop. See, like we're able to share great information here, including that I was going to be a little late today. So thanks everyone. But you can find this if you go to nugget.lol. You can of course also post your question on the YouTube channel, and I will get to it during our Wednesday Q&A. But let's get on to the news because there's a lot of stuff going on. So I'm going to start with the most important stuff that I think everybody should kind of know about this week. This one is just novel and kind of crazy. So cybercrime works in interesting ways. And this one I think is a particularly interesting one. So, okay, this is what happens. We have booking agencies, we have hotels, we have travel agencies. Those are the primary target here. So what the hackers are doing, get out of here. So what the hackers are doing is they're basically inquiring about bookings and infecting the initial targets here, which again are like hotels and booking sites and stuff, in order to get access to all of their customers. So this is like a twofold like supply chain style attack, where first the hackers are social engineering and then infecting these initial victims and then turning on their customers as an entire kind of model here. So that means there's three different classes of customers or three different classes of businesses that are the primary prey of this type of business model. And what the hackers are doing then is they initially send the email. They say, hey, I'm having a problem with my reservation. Please open this like PDF or like whatever this is, get an infection, and then start just hitting up customers for their credit card information. They're like, listen, there was a problem with your card. Can you please run your card again? Like, here's the URL for, the booking. And then it brings you to a fake like booking.com portal that will take your credit card information and then just like, use it for whatever. So here's an example of an email that a guest would get. And this is coming from the agency that you booked the trip with. So this is like pretty convincing, obviously, if you get this from the hotel you have a reservation at. Dear valued guest, due to an update of the booking rules, we are forced to request an additional card confirmation to guarantee your arrival. The procedure will take no more than 5 minutes. You have 24 hours to confirm your reservation. Otherwise, it will be canceled by the booking system itself. Please follow the personal link, booking.guest, approve reservation, and then this long kind of random seeming number. Important. Prior to commencing the verification, we kindly request that you review the limits set by your bank and ensure your card balance is sufficient to cover the equivalent amount of your reservation. Please be aware that a microtransaction will occur. Deducting the total sum of your booking, the funds will be swiftly returned to your card within the span of 5 seconds. Wow, they're so specific. Best regards, Grandi by Center Hotels. So that means that at a certain point, the hackers decided that these targets themselves were not that valuable. Like hacking a travel agency is like not that lucrative a thing. If you were to shut it down, if you were to exfiltrate its files, it really doesn't allow you to make off with that much useful information. Instead, by attacking the guests, you can actually make off with very valuable financial information, and you can charge it immediately because they're expecting this charge, or at least they've been told to expect this charge. So everybody gets redirected to this booking.com page with a summary, and then it all looks pretty good. It takes your credit card information. but yeah, apparently there are still some signs here. The advice on this one's tricky. You should avoid clicking on unsolicited links. One would say that if you booked with the hotel and they sent you a link, it is not unsolicited, even if they look legitimate. Be suspicious of urgent or threatening messages asking for immediate action, and check the URLs for indicators of deception. Like, indicators of deception. Like, most hotels use such crazy infrastructure when it comes to their online stuff because they're owned by some company that's owned by some company. I have to say, of all the attacks I've seen this week, I think that this is the one that unfortunately I would probably have fallen for, just because when you reach out and work with the hotel, you don't know if they've been compromised, and like, you don't know if they're sending you some like sketchy, link that's going to steal your information. Often it feels like they're going to steal your information anyway, just going through their like official website. So yeah. Okay, so Z is saying that the URL is too long. Well, if we look at the URL, I have to say, like, they kind of nailed, typically hotels will use some sort of payment gateway or service or whatever. Booking.com/guestapproved.info. That's a little bit of a flag for me, but so, it's .info isn't completely cursed. It's just like not common. /reservation and then a random number. Like, you would expect to see, like, okay, /reservation, you're confirming a reservation, and then a booking number perhaps. Like, that's not like totally outside the realm of believability here. So yeah, I mean, like, maybe it's just like, if they made it a super short redirect, like a really really short redirect, then that would also be kind of suspicious as well. So it's hard to say. But yeah, the average person probably isn't paranoid enough to run this through like a URL scan and see whether or not this is malicious. I would say that this would have a pretty high effective rate against the average person who's booked with the hotel and is expecting correspondence from the hotel. The only way they would catch it is if they reached out to the hotel and physically bothered someone there who was on the ball and realized that an attack was underway. All right, so moving on. So Predator in the Wires, a 3-part series of talking about these 0-day vulnerabilities. So an Egyptian candidate for president was targeted, it's believed, by the Egyptian government. And what was crazy here was this was Cytrox. This is, I believe, a Greek spyware company that is notorious for selling their stuff to whoever will pay. And frequently, their software is targeted at activists, at political opponents, at all sorts of people who are involved in opposing people with money. So spyware really is dangerous here in that some of this research is, instead of being reported to the vendors, turned into incredibly powerful cyber weapons, which deliver spyware so that these entities can look into the digital devices of basically anybody who has basically any sort of phone. In this case, it was targeting iOS devices. So these were links that were sent via SMS and WhatsApp. And what's particularly interesting here is this was a state-sponsored attack. And let me go into what the difference is between a state-sponsored attack and, maybe, well, okay, a lot of, let's be honest, almost all the time, a state sponsor is the one behind purchasing this mercenary spyware and deploying it. But what's an interesting indicator here is that anytime this particular person attempted to navigate to a website that didn't use HTTPS, the connection was hijacked by a device that was connected to like the victim's internet service provider's like service box, and it was persistently redirected to a malicious URL that took advantage of a 0-day vulnerability to infect his device. So that means like people are like, oh, well, what's the problem with like logging into a website or like going to a website that doesn't use HTTPS? Well, the issue is it can be hijacked and you can, display something else. And in this case, it was used to deliver a 0-day vulnerability. So yeah, this is the entire paper. It's very long. I'm not going to go over the entire thing. In fact, like these diagrams are like relatively easy to understand. So it goes into excruciating detail about how this works. And I have to say, like, Citizen Lab is now very famous for being the technical arm behind figuring out when high-profile people's devices are attacked by this type of mercenary spyware, and then working with Apple to get stuff fixed. Google also had a hand in this, I believe, as their advanced threat research group was one of the ones that discovered like what was happening here and gave some technical description of what the exploits were. So this led to recently patched Apple Chrome 0 days exploited in spyware attack. So this is a, I would say, more digestible article by good old Bleeping Computer, whom I'm writing an article for very soon, by the way. It kind of seems like the least I can do based on like how many of these articles are all like, you know, based on their reporting. Yeah, so this is going into more detail about how, or I guess like a higher level detail of how this victim's mobile connection was persistently selected via network injection. So even if this person wasn't doing anything, they weren't opening these texts, they weren't following these links, it doesn't matter, because every time they attempted to go to a website that didn't use HTTPS, they were redirected to this browser-based exploit. So this Chrome 0 day was also used to install the spyware. So a lot of the times we see like iMessage or other sorts of exploits that rely on like a 0-click sort of exploit, where somebody sends a message and then that automatically hacks their phone. But there's all these other exploits that are not like, usually they require somebody to like click on a link or like go to a malicious website, but you can bypass that if you have buy-in from a state sponsor, or if you have the ability to place the device in the telecommunications network, which is what happened here. So when we talk about like impossible situations, you know, having your phone company working against you to deliver like a 0 day vulnerability that nobody at these companies that supply this product have ever heard of, like that's pretty much the worst case scenario for any person who is, you know, active in politics, like a journalist or somebody who is frequently targeted by these sorts of attacks. So there have been 16 Apple 0 day 0 day vulnerabilities exploited this year, mostly by mercenary spyware groups. And this requires urgent updates. So emergency fixes have been issued for these 3 new 0 day exploits. They are considered very severe and they have been used in the wild. And now everybody knows what's going to happen. These have suddenly become less valuable because they've been fixed in all actively like auto updated devices. So now they're going to trickle down. They're going to become less expensive. They're going to get resold into other products that target older devices that haven't been updated. And those are going to be the new targets of these 0 days. They don't go away. They just become weapons that are cheaper and that only work against a subset of devices. So these 0 days really have quite a tail on them, where, you know, like devices that get resold into other countries and then don't get updated or get abandoned by the update schedule, they end up being really easy for these exploits to still work against. So you'll find that these exploits just get repackaged and sold in other forms all over the world and continue to impact people and their right to privacy. So these things suck. I hate them. All right, so next up, the government of Bermuda is apparently under cyber attack, and this has impacted their services rather strongly. At this point, if you're going to be paying for government services in Bermuda, they are not able to take cards. You have 2 options. You can pay in cash or you can write a check, and that is it. It is currently believed that Russian actors are involved, or that the attack originated from Russia, but there's still not a lot of information that's come out here. We'll probably learn more in about a week or so, but this attack still seems to be active and the recovery is, in progress. The government has said that they're going to hold a press briefing later today to provide additional information regarding the investigation's findings. There are a number of different ways to log into GitHub, but basically all of them require 2FA now. So 2-factor takes a number of different forms, but passkeys are becoming more and more popular. So GitHub passkeys are now generally available for anybody who wants to sign in. This typically means you'll sign in, it'll create a prompt on a device, you'll sign in on that device by doing like a biometric thing or like a number matching, and then you don't really need to remember a password anymore. Your device becomes your the first part of your password, your biometrics, and then like a number matching scheme becomes the second. There's generally a pretty easy experience of like logging in with this, and I've so far enjoyed using passkeys. So if you have a GitHub repository that's important and you want to make sure it's locked down, then highly encourage passkeys to be one of the ways that you enable login. All right, so a lot of Pizza Hut customers are potentially not getting pizzas; they're getting data breaches. So 193,000 customers of Australian Pizza Hut are potentially vulnerable, I guess we'll say, to phishing attacks or other sorts of impersonation after their information was apparently breached. I was a little bit confused about this because they said that I think passwords were released, but they were one-way encrypted passwords. One-way encryption to me just sounds like hashing. Am I wrong? Like, I don't know. Sometimes I read these and I was like, this is either over my head or somebody is just taking a creative liberty when describing like a hash password. Depending on if I'm right or if I'm wrong, that could mean either, these are like bcrypt, like encrypted passwords, or these are like, like just like hash passwords and like, I don't know. I'm really hoping it's bcrypt. That would be cool. But either way, this is a good amount of information. Full name, delivery address, delivery instructions, email address, phone number, and masked credit card data. If you are sending someone a phishing scheme where you're pretending to already know their credit card information, that is the key to confidence. So like, while it doesn't seem like a lot of information, the masked credit card data is really, I think, what's going to end up biting people here, because like getting a email or someone or something from a business that you think you already work with that contains this mass credit card information makes it seem like they already have your credit card. So this all is pretty unfortunate when it comes to the information that customers now have to be wary about, because it kind of sets them up very perfectly for a phishing attack. So Pizza Hut has had some past incidents. I remember reporting on like a ransomware attack in like the UK, that the Yum brands. Yes, the ransomware attack. Yes, I remember that. That forced the closure of 300 locations. However, this is the first time that I'm aware of that they have reported customer data being breached. All right, next up. So if you've got Windows, oh yeah, there is a Windows computer sitting right there. So I don't use Windows a lot, but I have really appreciated the integration with AI that has been a core focus of Microsoft in the last several months. Getting to do some of the programming I was talking about earlier with Bing was really cool. And frankly, I'm excited to see that Windows is bringing their AI-powered capabilities into Windows so that I don't have to keep opening, like their browser in order to access this stuff. If I'm using a Windows computer, being able to generate images and do all the other stuff I think is cool about the AI integrations within, the operating system and not having to go through a browser is interesting. So while it's sad to see Cortana go, I am excited to see what some of the Copilot abilities are going to be once they are integrated in this upcoming update. All right, so I don't have a ton to say about this. It's just something that I feel like we're going to be talking about in 2 weeks. So I just want to kind of introduce some of these terms here. So this is the P2P infect botnet, and it's oh my gosh, Bleeping Computer has really like gone for it when it comes to these like generated images. But okay, anyway, so this is a botnet worm that is going through a period of expansion and code stability that is indicating that it is getting ready for something, commercialization or utilization for something. This is a rather interesting worm that has been growing. Let's see. That's July 2023. Okay, yeah. So the first document in July of 2023, so it's relatively new. Breaches Redis instances using remote code execution flaw on Windows exposed Internet exposed Windows and Linux systems. So this is something that has been steadily growing and so far has only downloaded like mining software, but it hasn't actually begun mining. So it's kind of tested its ability to pull down payloads, and it's picked like the most generic possible payload. So whoever's behind this they're kind of like not tipping their hand at all, because it could be anybody if you're just pulling down like, like cryptocurrency mining software. that really could point to literally anyone. It's not too specific. So as a very, very cautious test of this new infrastructure, it seems like this is a botnet that is gaining more and more power, more and more code stability, and the ability also to implement a number of new features. So if you're interested in botnets, this is the one to keep an eye on. It is definitely growing steadily, and the goals here and the person who is behind this botnet is deliberately being obscured. Yes, more great mid-journey art. I'm kind of curious to know like why certain news organizations are using, AI generated art and others are not, and where they're getting it from. I think that because Bing allows you to use their AI generated images for non-commercial use only, Midjourney probably makes a lot more sense for like Bleeping Computer. But yeah, seeing the shift in journalism that covers like, highly not physical things to these AI generated images is really cool, because previously they had to rely on a set of like 25 like stock photos that I got to see every week. I get to see a lot of diversity now. It's pretty cool to say. It's nice to see that. All right, so next up, T-Mobile had a glitch, and this is a glitch. It's not a hack. It's not someone breaking in and exposing the information. It was just accidentally exposed. Customers began noticing that they were able to see other people's sensitive information. This was names, phone numbers, addresses, account balances, credit card details, like the expiration dates in the last 4 digits. So again, like mass credit card details. This was about 100 customers, according to T-Mobile. And yeah, overall, this is of the breaches that T-Mobile has had, this seems like one of the littlest ones. Um, T-Mobile said that a cyber attack did not cause the incident. The systems were not breached. It was just an unintentional disclosure. But T-Mobile has had 9 breaches since 2018. That's kind of a lot. But here's a list of them if you feel like revisiting any of those T-Mobile breach-related memories. All right, next up, we reported last week, I believe it was last week, on how there was a free download manager for Linux that was very, very popular and would randomly turn evil every like 100th time or so. Like it was basically an instance where when you would go to this website that was pretty well reputed in the Linux community to download a free and helpful tool, you would randomly, every once in a while, be redirected to a pretty clever piece of malware that would infect your system and allow somebody else to do all sorts of things on it. So this was discovered, and the package maintainers were like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry. Apparently they accidentally fixed the issue during an update where this was no longer an issue. And they didn't mean to fix it. They just updated something that broke the threat actor's ability to like upload stuff to or rather like have this redirect happen. But yeah, they have now come out and they've released a tool which allows you to check to see if your Linux device was infected. So I think this is a responsible thing to do. You can basically run this tool to see if you did download this tool, the FDM for Linux, whether or not it was an infected version. Again, most of the downloads were fine, but every once in a while it would deliver an infected version, which is pretty scary for people who, are interested in these sorts of open source tools and trust these websites that have been more or less vetted by the hacker community. One thing I would say is making sure that, the hash matches the version that is on either the GitHub repository or the official release. Obviously, if you're getting redirected to a different website that looks like the official release and has a different hash, that's kind of a problem. But yeah, these are really difficult sorts of attacks to protect against. Now, it is to be noted that while this tool will tell you if you've been infected, it will not actually remove the infection. You're going to have to either do that yourself or just get rid of your system and reboot it. But yeah, they said it appears that a specific web page on a server was compromised by a Ukrainian hacker group exploiting it to distribute malicious software. Only a small subset of users, specifically those who attempted to download FDM Linux between 2020 and 2022, were potentially exposed. This vulnerability was unknowingly resolved during a routine site update in 2022. So, wow. Woo, yeah, that's an unfortunate way to get infected if you're just downloading a tool that everybody knows and uses, and you just happen to be that like 100th person that gets redirected to the malicious version. All right, so I haven't had very many nice things to say about Signal ever since they got rid of SMS support. I have like 3 people now that refuse to go on Signal with me who get a response from me once per month. So you have doomed and cursed those people to no longer communicate with me, and I'm still upset about it. Just need to get that out of the way before we talk about Signal any further. Okay, now that that is done, Signal has added quantum-resistant encryption to its end-to-end encrypted messaging protocol. And what is the point of this? Like, do they think that quantum encryption is here? Do they think that this is something that is urgent right away? Well, no. In general, this is part of a strategy to make sure that anything that you are potentially having a government agency be able to intercept and archive isn't able to be decrypted later. So let's say that actually in 5 or 10 years, quantum cryptography becomes much more developed, and it becomes easy to decrypt some of the encryption that Signal is currently using. Well, they want to start as early as possible using encryption schemes that protect their users, not just now, but also into the future, as these conversations are potentially recorded and then go up against more sophisticated or more powerful computers in 5 or 10 years' time. So yeah, just because an encryption algorithm is good right now doesn't mean it's going to be good forever. And that's one thing where as storage becomes cheaper and cheaper and it becomes easier to store these communications for later, it becomes really important for organizations like Signal to make sure that they're keeping up with these emerging technologies and preventing people's communications that are harvested now from potentially being decrypted later. So I'm firmly on board with this. I think it's cool. It is also something that's been added on top of their existing layer of encryption. So now you still have to get through the regular layer of encryption to get to this. And then there's even more going on. They've got this crystals kyber, which seems like a horribly carcinogenic chemical, but I'm told instead is a new encryption mechanism, or sorry, encapsulation mechanism. Yeah, and that is going to help protect things that are perhaps broken by a quantum computer in, again, like 5 years or so, that would be able to chew through the current end-to-end encryption. All right, so if you use Trend Micro, specifically if you use their endpoint protection, it's time for an update. So this is an actively exploited Trend Micro Apex 1 endpoint protection attack. And the details here are unimportant, as the severity rating is 9.1, and that kind of tells you everything that you need to know. So for the uninitiated, a severity rating of anything more than 9 is a big deal, and this has been categorized as critical. So this means it is something that needs to be immediately addressed. The most interesting part about this attack is that it is actually a third-party uninstaller module that is the target here. It seems like all the code from in the main part of this is fine. It's just the uninstaller module that has the issue. It impacts the following products: Trend Micro Apex 1 2019, Apex 1 SaaS 2019, Worry-Free Business Security, sold as the Virus Buster Business Security in Japan. Oh my God, there's just a lot here. So anyway, if you use Trend Micro's endpoint protection, just make sure that you update your stuff. It seems as though yeah, this has been actively exploited and they're trying to get it updated as urgently as possible. But anytime there's an active exploit out there, you're only a couple short steps away from a proof of concept being dropped on GitHub, and that opens up to anybody. And with Shodan and other things lighting up any internet connected service, it's really important that this stuff gets patched and get patched immediately. Not every week that we see like a 9 point anything critical vulnerability score. So that is always something to get on quick. All right, so we've reported on the International Criminal Court, which is hosted in the Netherlands, coming under attack ever since they charged Russia with war crimes in their war in Ukraine. There has now been a report of a cyber attack against the International Criminal Court. This was disclosed on Tuesday, and they are being very tight-lipped about this. They are not really talking about anything other than that the Netherlands is assisting in the investigation and that there was some sort of breach. Let's see. There's no information about the extent of the cyber attack's nature. or whether the perpetrators managed to access or exfiltrate any data or files from its system. The court has only said that it continues to analyze and mitigate the impact of the incident, focusing on ensuring the core work of the court continues. So again, this is one of those organizations where when they get breached, it's because like people have been attacking them like for a very long time. In fact, like the number of stories that we've covered before of like attempted attacks, some of them physical. I think that they actually caught some dudes with like Wi-Fi equipment that were like sneaking up on them and like trying to plant like malicious access points like near the building. This has been an organization that's been under attack for quite some time now. So seeing this sort of report does not surprise me. We don't really have many details here, but I'm sure that we will learn more in the coming weeks. Question, did this affect just the web download or the repository? Based on my knowledge of the story before, where we were talking about the Linux download, nope, not that one. The Linux download, nope, not that one. There we go. The Linux download manager, this was from the website and not from their repo. So if you downloaded it from the repository, it seems as though you would be fine. So that's my impression anyway, just from reading it. All right, let's get caught back up. So this wasn't good. So GitLab is like a kind of like project management, pipeline management, collaboration tool. And they also had a critical vulnerability. This was a 9.6. So this would allow someone to potentially run pipelines as someone else. So that means that you could be like, okay, I want to take over this very important project. I will run a pipeline as the publisher of that project, giving a third-party attacker control over something, or giving them access, or pushing malicious code out to users. This is a really big deal. So if you use GitLab, you should definitely make sure because that you address this, because it impacts GitLab Community Edition, Enterprise Edition, version 3.12 through 16.2.7, and version 16. Just here, there's just a bunch of numbers. But anyway, this is another one of those really critical vulnerabilities that potentially can impact a project and all of their customers. So I can understand why it's so high. 9.6 is really high. That's a very high number. So of all the security incidents this week, this is definitely one you should be paying attention to. The GitLab, you can go more into the details here, but the long and short of it is basically you could trigger specific events within GitLab as another user by impersonating their permissions to run code, modify data, or trigger events. Not good for any sort of product or pipeline that is tied to these accounts. All right, so it kind of feels related back to the like attack we were talking about earlier, where telecommunication companies were a key part of attacking end users. Telcos have been subjected to lots of different attacks from state actors and also from some of these commercial entities in order to deliver further malware. And HTTP Snoop, which is a tool that I've heard of and worked with before, and Pipe Snoop are being increasingly used in cyber attacks on these telecommunication services in order to allow attackers to spy on them and also their customers. So these are also masquerading as Palo Alto Network's Cortex XDR products to perform actions on the network, and basically can do things like set up stealthy web servers that accept and send out requests while masquerading as legitimate Microsoft Office, I think it's Outlook traffic. Very, very sneaky stuff here that is designed to allow attackers to use these telecommunication companies as a staging ground to go after their ultimate targets. Very, very valuable, as these companies manage lots of information that's critical for the next step for a lot of these very sophisticated attackers, whether that is maybe in resetting passwords via SMS or doing all sorts of other things. Imagine if you have control over someone's communications. I'm gonna sneeze. Okay, sorry. Oh, if you have control over someone's telecommunications company, it really makes it easy to do some of these like SMS resets or some of these other things that can allow you to get very deep into their personal information, or even take over their accounts all at once. All right, we've got about 15 minutes left. Let's see if we can get through these next ones. So APT36, not very creatively named. I'm sure that there's yes, of course there is. Transparent Tribe. And I have to say, I'm disappointed with Bleeping Computer on this one. Like, I think Transparent Tribe could have been a magnificent prompt for whatever this would have been. But this is a group that I believe is linked to Pakistan. Yes, I believe it's a Pakistani aligned hacking group. And the goal of this group is to get you to install a APK file that is like a Trojanized version of YouTube. So they use social media or I guess like social engineering, like social media campaigns to go after people and try to trick them into downloading the software. It is not on the Google Play Store. And it seems to be primarily focused at military or diplomatic organizations from India and Pakistan. And it seems to be fairly like targeted. So like going after people who are involved in these organizations, trying to get them to download like an upgraded or updated or more fully featured version of YouTube. But instead, what can it do? Record with the microphone, front and rear camera, collect SMS and multimedia messages, call logs, sending SMS. It can send SMS messages. It can block incoming SMSs, initiate phone calls, take screen captures, override system settings like GPS and network, and modify files on the phone's system. That's basically everything. So be wary of third-party applications, especially ones that are like YouTube style ones. If they come from outside the Play Store, they are always going to be suspect. All right, so I'm going to be honest. I don't use Windows Subsystem for Linux because it doesn't let me do a bunch of the Wi-Fi stuff I want to do. I like to do Wi-Fi hacking, and it really doesn't let you do very much of that. So I lost interest nearly immediately. But apparently there's a bunch of new features that are coming to Windows Subsystem for Linux. One of them is mirrored network mode that allows you to do some stuff that I'm still not that interested in. I'm sorry. I got to be honest. I'm still not that excited about this. I would, if you use Windows Subsystem for Linux and this is a big update for you, please let me know. But as for me, I'm still waiting on the ability to work with wireless network adapters and do like sneaky Wi-Fi stuff, which I can't do on Windows. I still have to use a VM. I'm very frustrated about it. So yeah, this is fine, but just give me full control over wireless network adapters and I will be a lot happier. All right, so this is a little out of left field. Suddenly you can just use MS Paint to make PDF. So they're adding after all these years, 38 years, Microsoft Paint is getting layers, it's getting transparency, and the ability to export PDF files. So I'm generally pretty supportive of this. Like Microsoft Paint is installed on pretty much everything, so being able to make PDFs and make transparencies, draw on different layers, like that's obviously for just like jotting something down or making quick like little pieces of art, seems easy and cool. So I was just kind of pleased to see this because I always try to make layers in Paint anyway, and then when I realize I can't, I get mad. So the fact that you can do that now, and yeah, I'm generally pleased. I think that everybody should know that you can now, anytime you have access to a computer with Paint on it, provided it's been updated, you can now make PDFs and also transparencies. Very cool. All right, this is the first time that I have seen deepfakes be used in like a pretty widespread campaign that people are falling for. So TikTok has fallen victim to a number of different scams that are repeatedly uploading these deepfaked videos that have Elon Musk and other celebrities talking about how you can get free cryptocurrency by going to one of these websites, registering, creating a wallet, and then depositing an initial amount that's roughly equal to like $138 or something like that in order to get your account started. So yeah, sorry, 0.34 Bitcoin worth. Oh yeah, okay, sorry, this is what it was proposing to deposit. There we go. $132 is what the scam cost you. So here's the attack chain here. You're on TikTok and you see Ethereum giveaway. You see Elon Musk talking about how he's giving away Ethereum and why he's doing it. And oh, look, it's on Fox News. Thank you, Elon. I'm crying. So that will lead you to one of these malicious websites that looks like a crypto trading platform. You sign up, and of course, it requires a certain amount of investment to get your 0.34 Bitcoin, your $9,000 for free. You use your promo code that you get from the social media video, and then boom, they take your $132 and they never speak to you again. Yeah, so not a very sophisticated scam. This is one that's been around for a good amount of time, but we see it over and over and over, and it is very successful. So obviously, they could get you to do all sorts of things with the scam. They could have you download like a malicious file, or they could just steal your money and run, which it seems like they're kind of like limiting themselves to in this case. But yeah, deepfakes are now a thing on TikTok, and people that were falling for crypto scams before are falling for them even more now because of these social media videos that purport to have some sort of special code or a special giveaway thing that entitles you to a certain amount of limited free fake currency. So be wary. These deepfakes are now out there. These ones don't look particularly convincing, but they're so cheap to make now that low quality versions of these deepfakes are still actually fooling people on social media. All right, and this is something that I'm kind of looking forward to. This is a Microsoft Edge like read aloud feature that is coming out for Chrome. This is in the Canary or testing version, and it gets the job done. This is something where I kind of assumed that this was already a feature, and I don't know why it's not. So yeah, being able to read things aloud obviously is good for accessibility, and also just being lazy and like reading all of my news articles for this week in the shower. So we'll see. It actually kind of sounds nice. Maybe I'll try it and let you guys know how it works next week. All right, so this is a bit of a technical article. If you are interested in how ransomware is evolving, then this is something you're going to want to check out. But this is talking about how ransomware is now using the Sphinx encryptor on Azure storage. So they're going after Azure specifically by using stolen Microsoft accounts and then encrypting their Azure cloud storage environment. So often we see a lot of these attacks like happening against like on-prem systems, but now we're seeing them evolve into the cloud and be able to use compromised credentials to break in and encrypt entire cloud environments. So yeah, this is just the way that ransomware has been evolving lately. It's something that you should expect to see more of as these sorts of attackers realize that there's so much information in the cloud that's, once encrypted, often not backed up very well, or isn't very resilient to being suddenly taken down or mass encrypted. And they're going to continue to take the easiest route to getting to the data and attacking. And in some cases, it's not going to be on-prem systems anymore. It's going to be these Azure environments. So you can see more about this in this article. We're almost out of time. I think I have one last thing to note. This was pretty surprising, and a lot of people were talking about it in just on like InfoSec Twitter today, or I guess former like winding down InfoSec Twitter. Cisco has bought Splunk for $28 billion. And of course, there's big like mergers and stuff all the time. But Splunk has been the #1 provider of free t-shirts for a very long time, which just means generally that like, in my like, I think that the way that like hackers kind of judge how well a business is doing is like how many free shirts they give you and how like free they are with the shirts, how good the design is. Splunk has had pretty good shirts for like a long time. So like, it's kind of a surprise to see them purchased because they were getting, as far as I was aware, like pretty excellent offers to be purchased for a while now, and seeing them get bought by someone is like, even Cisco is like kind of surprising to a lot of researchers. But we'll kind of see here. There was some mention in the article about maybe some concerns about like regulatory compliance based on like how their businesses overlap. But Cisco doesn't really seem worried about this. Either way, a big acquisition and definitely something that is interesting to see. There will be more details later, I guess. But yeah, so that was definitely news in the cybersecurity world today. Both of these brands obviously really huge, but Splunk has been out there, yeah, for quite some time as like one of the industry leaders in their space. So pretty crazy. Cool. All right, so that is just about yeah, right, Z. I was shocked as well. Like I was like reading some guy's like hot take on it, and I was like, is this real? And I had to look it up like right before the stream. Yeah, apparently that is a thing. So, okay, that is just about all the time we have for this week. Of course, that's not all the great free stuff we have at Varonis. If you want to check out some more of our great stuff, you can also check out and support the stream by going to varonis.com/Kody. That's Kody. That'll take you to our latest content on the Varonis website, and also let people know that you care about the stream. So we always appreciate it. And yeah, make sure to check out the stream next week. Oh, and before I forget, we also have our sometimes co-host Angelina's class coming up. Sorry, let me pull this up. So Angelina was not able to go on our last live stream because she was at a drone conference in San Diego where they were showing off all kinds of crazy and interesting drone technology. So I'm sure she'll probably have some updates to this to her class based on that. But if you want to support one of the people that has been on the show and has delivered some really interesting demos on drone and aviation hacking, you can check out Angelina's online workshop tomorrow. It is a paid class, but it goes to support Null Space Labs and, of course, Angelina. And yeah, you can get into drone threat modeling, drone identification and tracking, ground control systems, digital forensics. It's super cool. So I got to attend one of these classes in person, and there are still some tickets available. So if you're interested in drone hacking and you want to support a great researcher we've had on the show before, I'm happy to see Angelina do more of these. And especially not a lot of people are doing drone hacking. I learned a lot about all the different things that are stored on like the SD card and how you can track the flight and even identify when a drone might have like dropped something, for example. So all covered in the class, and a very cool thing to check out if you are free tomorrow. Because yeah, it is happening tomorrow, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. That's my time zone, but I believe Pacific time it starts at 6. So check it out. All right, everyone. I will see all of you next week. If you have any questions, you can go to the nugget.lol link shortener, which will send you to our Discord server. You can leave your questions there, or of course on the YouTube channel. And yeah, we will talk to you next time. I'm also going to be doing, I forgot to mention, I'm also going to be doing a class later tonight for the Ethical Hacking Kitchen. This is a project of a student-run project from the San Francisco State University. I'm going to be teaching about getting started with web application pen testing. So we're going to be using OWASP Zap to get started with like our first brute forcing of a vulnerable login. So yeah, this is a really cool project. One of my friends, Ryan, from DEF CON, kind of set this up. We're going to be doing it later this evening. So yeah, if anybody is in the stream from San Francisco State University, I will see you later tonight. So, all right, we will see everyone next week on our Wednesday stream. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for hanging out.